All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to this is our third
Yep.
quarterly video chat with special education. Our topic tonight is Family Guide to Transition Planning. So we will give you guys some great strategies and tools to use while you're planning transitioning your child from school to other life opportunities. My name is Liberta Craters for the Syracuse City School District. I oversee Parent University with the Office of Family Engagement. And we also have Rachel Fleming on the call. She is our administrative assistant who handles all of our technology and things like that. So we are very grateful for her. I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping rules really quick before we get started. We ask that if you keep your phones and computers muted until the end of the presentation, and then we will allow time for questions. We also ask that you save your questions until after the presentation, just in case Christine goes over something that you might be looking for answers to during the presentation. And then at the end of her presentation, we will save time for questions. You can raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can ask a question, or you can pop your question in the chat and I'll read it off for Christine to answer. So now I'm going to turn it over to Christine O'Brien, and she is going to lead us in our presentation today. Go ahead, Christine.
Thank you, Liberta and Rachel. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good to see you again. I know several of you were on our first couple trainings when we walked through all of the sections of the IEP. And we talked a little bit about that post-secondary transition planning and the components that are in the IEP, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper into those tonight. So when I talk about transition planning, what I'm talking about is what are we doing while we still have our students in school to help prepare them for life after high school? Because our kids have IEPs, what do the regulations say is mandated for the school to help prepare that student for life after high school? So that's kind of where what we're looking at today. I am with the New York State, well, the Mid-State School Age Family and Community Engagement Center, which is part of New York State's Educational Partnership. So this disclaimer just shows you that all of the information that I'm sharing with you today is for your helpful information. It does not constitute any endorsements by New York State Ed of any vendors, authors, or resources. So just real quick, I know most of you probably know me, but I have been in the field of special education with New York State Ed for about the last 16 years now. I'm also a mom of a young adult with a disability. So I have gone through, as parents on the call tonight, through all of those different stages. My son was premature, so we had early intervention in the house. We had that transition to preschool, the preschool transition to school age, and then, the elementary to middle, middle to high school. And my son is 22, so he has transitioned into his adult life as well. So I'll share some of those experiences with you as we go through. So I want you to just sort of think about this. You don't need to do all of this introduction, but one of the things I want you guys to just think about for a minute is this question. And you can put it in the chat if you want. Sometimes it's fun for me to hear your responses. But can you remember what you wanted to be when you were 12 years old? So when you were 12 years old, if you can think back, that was a long time ago for me, maybe not such a long time for all of you, but what did you think you wanted to be when you were 12 years old? And just jot that in the chat for a quick minute if you don't mind. A nurse, a lawyer, a doctor. Excellent. I'll see if there's a couple more coming in. So then my next question is, even if you don't want to share it, are you doing that? So Liberta, I don't think you're a nurse, are you? Or were you a nurse? Okay, so right. So the reason that I asked this question is because in regulations for education, we start really focusing around when the student is 12. We ask them a very quick post-secondary transition assessment of, what do you want to do for life after high school? What do you want to be when you grow up? And honestly, asking a student that at age 12, a lot of times it's only what they're aware of. So, Liberta, I don't know if somebody in your family was a nurse, or I know those of you that said doctors and lawyers, maybe that's what you were exposed to. But as you went to school, as you were exposed to other opportunities in the community, you may have changed your mind. So that's what I want you to kind of focus on. Just because we're asking these questions at 12, at 14, at 15, it doesn't mean that it's set in stone that that's what the school district has to do to move your child along the realm of becoming a nurse. Because maybe by the time you're 14, you no longer want to be a nurse, you want to be a veterinarian. So I just wanted to kind of play that little game for a minute, just to kind of get you thinking about when we talk to our students about what they want to do, understanding that that can change many times. I mean, I was in the world of banking forever, and then after I had my son, I came into the world of special education. So, you know, opportunities and experiences do change those things sometimes. You guys do have this from previous times, and I'll make sure that Rachel gets a link to today's training. But this is just our blueprint for improved results for students with disabilities. For those of you that maybe haven't been on the last couple calls, these 7 key focus areas are what drive my work in the world of special education, where we're looking to help students become self-advocates of their own, helping students to understand the importance of helping to determine their own educational goals, being engaged and involved in their IEP meetings so that we truly hear from them. And that's going to be so much more important at that age 14 and 15 when we're really digging deep into preparing that student for life after high school, because we want to make sure it's based on what the student wants, right? So I wouldn't have wanted, when I was in 9th grade, somebody to send me down a track of becoming a nurse because I can't stand the sight of blood. So I would not have wanted to participate in those classes or think that they were fun or be engaged in those classes. So we want students to be able to be engaged in their educational plans. We also want to make sure that families are partners in that. And I'll share some things with you tonight, just in regards to how we as families can become more of a partner in our students' post-secondary education planning. I'm going to put in the chat right now, because I think there's quite a few of us on here. And this is just a Google link. If you click on that link, you will have access to today's PowerPoint as well as a companion document. So I do see, and I just wanted to sort of check this. It says, my son is nonverbal. I don't know if he will be able to tell me. There are so many assessments that your school district will be doing with students that are verbal, nonverbal, students of all intellectual abilities. So fear not. I think, you know, there are going to be lots of assessments where even if the student is nonverbal, we can get a good sense for what their strengths, their preference, their interests, and their needs are. And then maybe do some matching with assessments of what somebody with the skills that your child can do might be good at in their, you know, in their post-secondary, in their adult life. So there's a lot of ways that we can help students of all abilities. Okay, so what is the purpose and focus of transition planning? It's to help students establish timelines for their future, where they want to. I always use the words living, learning, and earning, right? So where are they going to live? How are they going to earn? And what are they going to continue to learn after high school? Are they going to continue on into a university or a college program? Are they going to learn adult technical education? There's lots of different things that we can think about for our students. But the beauty of IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is if our students have IEPs, we are really doing a lot of preparing, again, when they're 12, but really hitting the ground running that age 14 to 15 in their IEPs. The other thing that we talked about is always building those self-determination skills. So those self-advocacy skills, self-regulation, self-awareness. The more the student can be aware of how their disability impacts how they learn, then the more they're going to be engaged in their education. So you notice I didn't say the more they know what their disability is, the more we've labeled them or anything like that. That's not what we're here to do. It's just that everybody has different learning styles, whether we have a disability or not. Some of us are hands-on learners. Some of us are visual learners. Some of us are auditory learners. I have to have a PowerPoint in front of me if I'm paying attention to a presenter when I'm sitting in the audience, because I can't just listen to them. So I at least need to see that up on the screen. If I have it in a paper copy that I can write on, even better, right? But I know that's how I learn best, right? So that's what we want to help our students understand, is how do they learn best and how can we help accommodate them for their learning styles. And a lot of times the way they learn may be impacted by how their disability impacts them with their education. So that's why we look at the IEPs. Okay. So transition planning is ongoing, and it's really focusing on where is the student now? So if some of you remember, we already went through the IEP the last two sessions, and the one key focus in the IEP was the present levels of performance under academic, social, and physical functioning. If you remember, I use that acronym a lot, SPIN, strengths, preference, interest, and needs. So where are we now is who is the student now today, let's say at age 14? What are their strengths, their preference, their interests, and their needs? And then where do they want to go? So through transition assessments, through interviews with the student, we start to get an idea of where they want to go for living, learning, and earning after high school. And then it's kind of like a backwards planning. So we say, here are 3 things we know you want to do for living, learning, and earning. Now we're going to come backwards. In your IEP, we're now going to set you up to be successful for what you want to do for life after high school. Okay. So how do we get there is what are we doing within the realm of our family and community, but also what is the school district doing to prepare us to be successful, to be that nurse or that doctor or that banker or that teacher, right? So those are the things we're looking at. So again, ongoing process. And again, as I said, it's kind of that backwards planning to put supports in place to help the student master the skills they need for what they want for life after high school. So just thinking again, real quickly, the 3 areas are post-secondary education and training. So what will that student do when they leave high school to further their education or learn a trade or even just learning new things in the community? What might they do for employment, whether that is supported employment, volunteer work, paid employment, lots of different things. And then independent living skills. So the independent living skills is a big piece that I really like to focus on because it's not necessarily about where the student's going to live, but how are they going to become more independent in where they're living. So some students might continue to live with family for a very long time. How can we build their independent living skills while they are still living with families, right? Some students may not want to or may not be able to live on their own completely. Maybe they need roommates, maybe they need a mentor, but they can still increase their level of independency from age 12 to 14 to 18 to 32, right? So that's what we want to be thinking about. All right, I'm going to skip that slide because we already talked about it. But what I wanted to talk about real quick is in New York State regulations, that means that when the IEP is in effect, when the student turns 15, we automatically populate into the IEP measurable post-secondary goals, transition needs, and a coordinated set of activities. And we're going to talk about each of those. So if you right now have a student that is not age 14 turning 15, or if you're teachers that are teaching elementary or early middle school, you're not even going to see these sections populated into the IEP yet. Typically what happens is, again, as I said, the year the student's IEP is in effect when they are 15, these areas populate in and then we start those services. So I want to give you an idea. It's not when it turns 15, it's the year that the IEP is in effect when they are 15. So I'm going to give you an example. My son has a December birthday. So in March, when we were talking about his CSE meeting for the following school year, the teachers had to already complete transition assessments for him because they had to get to writing that new IEP, putting together what his hopes and dreams were for the future and how they could help him get there by developing those skills. So it's not when the student turns 15. So for a lot of kiddos, we're going to be talking about transition assessments at age 14. Then if you remember why I asked you earlier, there is the very first part of transition planning in New York State is called the age 12 assessment. It used to be called a level 1 assessment. The good news is it's called age 12, so we remember to do it at age 12. This is an assessment that is an interview with the student, with the teacher, and with the family members, your parent, guardian, probably one family member, to talk about Where do I think my child's strengths are in the world of developing skills for a vocation after high school or even currently? And a lot of times you might see the student feels their strengths are one thing, the teacher and the family members think something different. At age 12, we start to look at that information, collect it as data, and start thinking about how we can help that student. And then, as I said, at age 14, turning 15, we dig deeper into some more detailed strength-based transition assessments. And I know I've worked with a lot of your high school counselors and teachers in Syracuse City for many years. And you guys have some really great strength-based assessments that your teachers work on with the students, again, once they're that age 14, turning 15. Also at age 15, when we start adding these components to the IEP, by New York State law, the student must be invited to their CSE meeting. So this is a time where I would encourage family members to encourage the student to attend that meeting so that they can give their input and we can be talking about the student with the student there. What are the student's hopes and dreams for the future? So you'll notice that this slide explains that every year we will revisit those transition planning, the year the student starts when they're 15, up until the day before their 22nd birthday or they have graduated. So in New York State, students can remain in school until the day before their 22nd birthday or when they have achieved their diploma, whichever happens first. Okay, so just giving you that idea. But what I'm going to share with the family members tonight is I don't want 15 to be the first time that your student goes to a CSE meeting because we're going to start asking them for their participation. So it would be beneficial early on to let them come in for parts of the meeting sometimes, right? Or at least as teachers and caregivers and family members, share with the student what your experiences have been like at those CSE meetings so that the student understands what they're walking into. A lot of times, and I've done this before in Syracuse City, and I know the family engagement office will really work with you, the families, and the student to help them prepare. Might sit down with you and say, hey, here are the accommodations. Here's what you say you want for life after high school. Let's think about some electives you might be able to take next year. This is where your child's school counselor is going to be a key component too, once you get to the high school level, to help with some of this transition planning. So again, what is the student's role? I talked earlier about understanding their disability, but more so understanding how their disability impacts them in different settings, in the school setting, at home, in the community. Some kids may need to take frequent breaks during the day, can't sustain and sit in a class for 55 minutes. So thinking about different supports that the student can help us to understand are going to help them to gain access and progress in their education. We want students to be able to explore lots of different options and supports, thinking about what different careers look like. That's where we as family members can really help our students to understand, just when you're out in the community, maybe talking about, you went to the drive-in teller to, cash a check or something. I wonder what that person, I wonder what they were interested in when they were in high school. And did they need a high school diploma or college degree to be a bank teller? They probably had to be good with numbers, right? So thinking about ways that you can help the student understand the world of work around them. Sometimes I know we've had where families will say, you know what? We had my child interview their uncle who's a lawyer, their aunt who's a teacher, their mom who, works in the cafeteria at the high school. Just interview them to say, what are the things you like about your job? What things didn't you like about your job? And what skills did you need to develop to be good at your job? Because that's a way that kids can then build that awareness about careers and the world of work. Also, sometimes, let me go back a quick slide for a minute. There may be work-based learning opportunities within your school, right? So students could even consider doing some different work-based learning opportunities, okay? The impact of the student involvement in their IEPs is really so that they can work towards accomplishing the goals that we've set in their IEP, that they can advocate for themselves in the classroom. So they start to understand what supports and services they have, And I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a student who gets to go to a quiet location to take their tests, but there happens to be a sub that day in the classroom, and maybe the sub isn't aware of that. If the student can advocate for themselves, they can say, oh, Mrs. Jones, you know what? I get to go to the learning center whenever there's a test. And so the student is now advocating for themselves to go to that area that's going to be conducive for them and accommodate their needs, right? They are then invested in their learning and their educational progress. Okay, so again, I would strongly encourage you not waiting till that year that the student's turning 15 when they receive an invitation, but start to think about how they can be engaged in the process prior to that. And then as family members, and again, that link that I shared in the chat earlier has the whole family guide to transition planning. It's a whole booklet. And in there, there are a lot of great resources for families. There's even timelines of things that we should be doing from age 12 to 14, 15 to 16, 17 to 18, and into their adult world. But one of the things that I want to share with families is I want to make sure that as families and guardians, you are going to your child's CSE meetings, right? You are an invited, mandated person to be at those meetings. So I want to make sure that you're going to those meetings now so that when it's time to bring your child into that, you have had experiences with the team and you can share your experiences with your child, right? You also are a key person as a family member and a caregiver to understand maybe beyond the academic area what your students' strengths, preference, needs are, what their medical history might be, if there's any cultural backgrounds and beliefs that your family has that might be impacting how they access their education, you want to share that with the team. You also maybe want to talk about conversations you've had with your child about what they say they like about school and what they don't like about school. More often than not, our kids are going to tell us what they don't like about school as opposed to what they do like about school, right? So it's interesting to have those conversations that they can start to say what they don't like, and then you can kind of be that investigator to say, so you said you don't like math, but what do you think about history? Do you like learning about the presidents? Do you like American history over global history? And start to have some of those conversations with them. Okay, so we're going to jump into the components of the IEP. Again, as I mentioned, the last two sessions that we did, we walked through all of the areas of the IEP. So we touched upon these areas a little bit, but these areas in the IEP do not populate until that year that the student is turning 15. So the very first thing that's going to happen when we talk about transition planning is there's going to be those strength-based transition assessments that your school team and teacher is working on with the student. And these are assessments to get to what does the child like to do? What is the child's spin, strengths, preference, interest, and needs? What are their learning styles? What are their hopes and dreams for the future? When a kid says, I don't know what I want to be, then we know to pull out some other assessments and really start to think about giving them some direction based on what we know they're good at and what they need help with and how that can mesh with careers and opportunities. So once we have those transitions assessments and we've completed those, if you remember, the very first sections of the IEP are those present levels of performance. So who am I today in the here and now under academic and functional performance, social development, and physical development. So we're going to be looking at the present levels of performance and we're going to be tying that into the transition assessments. Then if you look on the right-hand side, through those transition assessments and conversations with the student, we're going to create 3 measurable post-secondary goals. So these are in addition to the annual goals, but these are those goals that I mentioned earlier that are kind of out there for what the student wants to do for life after high school. And now we're going to come back and say, how do we prepare them to meet those goals for what their hopes and dreams are for life after high school? The way we're going to do that is we're going to look at what are their transition needs, what skills do they need to develop to accomplish that, and we're also going to look at what courses of study should they be taking in high school to prepare them for what they want for life after high school. And those measurable post-secondary goals might change from age 14 to 15 to 17 to 18. Our hope would be that by probably junior into early part of senior year, those measurable post-secondary goals are definitely more refined to what the student has been taking in courses and the direction that we think the student definitely wants to go in. And then the next section that we're going to talk about in the IEP is the coordinated set of transition activities. So those are activities that we do from year to year, and they will be different, and we're going to learn more about them on how we help the student in those activities develop the skills to be successful for life after high school. So this is sort of kind of repeating, but I sort of like this format. The transition assessments are in the evaluation section. So for parents that are on the call today, if you have your child's IEP and you know your child's 17, you can look right at the top under the evaluation section to know what transition strength-based assessments were done with your child and when they were done. And then the strengths, interests, and preferences from those assessments go into the present levels. Their future goals for life after high school are the measurable post-secondary goals, and that section now populates into the IEP. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the transition needs and the coordinated set of activities that we'll discuss. And we're going to hit upon each of these. So the transition assessments can be formal, they can be computer-based, they can, again, if we have students that are nonverbal, there are many transition assessments for students that are not verbal, but that can communicate with eye gaze by using a switch, by using PECS systems, by using augmentative communication devices. And so those assessments can be very formal. We can also do informal assessments, maybe self-evaluation of the student, family observations, teacher observations, just, unique conversations that you have with the student when it's not an academic period, maybe in study hall, and you're talking to the student about their hopes and dreams for the future. But we also want to tie the family and the caregivers into that as well. What do we see that the student might be successful in for life after high school? So then once those assessments are done, again, as I said, they now weave throughout the rest of the IEP. So if we're looking at measurable post-secondary goals for the student, we're hoping that the transition assessments align with those measurable post-secondary goals. So everything starts to make sense. So when we look at those assessments, the present levels of performance will summarize those assessments and explain to us what the student's strengths, preference, interests, and needs are, especially towards moving on to their adult life. The measurable post-secondary goals are what we create from talking with the student, from collecting all of the data from those transition assessments for education and training, employment, and independent living. So where and how is the student going to continue to learn new skills after graduation? Like I said, is it going to be earning a degree, auditing classes at a college, or is it looking to do apprenticeships? Are they going to do adult learning somewhere? How are they going to continue to learn new skills after graduation? And then the employment piece is, where is the student going to work after graduation? And again, as I said, that could be, again, supported employment, competitive employment, volunteer work. And then the independent living is, where are they going to live and what skills are they going to develop to access adult services? Okay, so let me show you. This is the section in the IEP that will populate, and you'll notice right up here at the top, it even says when the IEP is in effect when the student is 15. These gray boxes you won't see on your IEP if you're looking at your child's IEP, because these will be completed with those measurable post-secondary goals as well as the transition needs. So when we think about the measurable post-secondary goals, I'm going to show you an example of a few of them. But we're going to think about, again, post-secondary education. So students with disabilities might be interested in post-secondary education at a college or a university, or a vocational trade or a trade school, right? So early in the transition process, we want to talk to our students about taking courses that are of interest to them in the field that they may want to go into for life after high school, and talk about what courses might be a little bit more challenging for them. We want to involve them as best we can in the community. So let's say, for example, we have a student that says they want to be a basketball coach when they leave high school. Maybe we get them involved in one of our community gyms in our YMCAs and getting involved in maybe being an assistant or an assistant to the assistant for a youth basketball team and things like that to get experiences. Again, a great thing is meeting with the school counselors, going through career inventories. What do careers look like, right? What are the skills you need to develop to be a good basketball coach? You've got to be a leader. You've got to have some skills in basketball. You've got to have good communication skills, right? So thinking about all of those things. Then if we look at the employment, so the employment is that we're talking about in this area is for life after high school. That doesn't mean the student can't be employed, working at, the mall, at a fast food restaurant, at Delta Sonic, wherever they may want to be working now to gain some income. But this is really more that employment. What are we looking for life in the future for them in their adult world? What did they say? They wanted to be a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, right? All of those types of things. What we want to think about doing while we still have those students in school is give them opportunities to do career exploration. And that's a lot of what they can do with their counselors, but also maybe through some work-based learning experiences. I know prior to COVID, especially at Syracuse City, there were a lot of work-based learning experiences and things are starting to move around a little bit. It's not as robust as it was prior to COVID, but hopefully thinking about some different work-based learning opportunities. And a lot of those opportunities don't have to be outside of the physical school building. They can be in the school building, right? You could have somebody assisting with the librarian, assisting at the front desk, assisting in the cafeteria, if those are certain skills and certain attributes of a job or career that the student might be interested in. And then the independent living skills is considering where the student's going to live, but also considering the skills that the student needs to gain. Money management, laundry, being able to take public transportation, preparing their own meals. A big one is medication management. Do they know their medications and how they can take them? Can we help them create charts to know that AM, PM, and when you take certain medications, helping the student to learn that. So let me give you an example. These are just some examples of measurable post-secondary goals. But a couple things that I want you to think about, and especially when you're looking at your child's IEP, is these goals will all be stated in a phrase that is after high school, upon graduation, because these goals are goals that the student is going to achieve in their adult life after high school. So under education and training, we have after graduating high school, Lisa will attend a 2-year college to take courses in animal care. If that is her measurable post-secondary goal, we could be pretty assured that throughout her transition assessment, she talked about wanting to be in the world of animal care. We don't want to, through her assessment, see that it says she'd be great at culinary and then her goal is animal care. That doesn't make sense. We want to make sure that they align. And then you'll see another one after graduating high school, Jeremy will participate in instruction at a center-based adult program. So that would be furthering education and training. Employment would be upon graduation, Lisa will work as a dog groomer as she participates in veterinary science coursework. Okay. Or within 1 year of graduation, Jeremy will receive job development services from a vocational rehabilitation program. So that's talking about how are they furthering their skills to get to that employment piece. And then as I talked earlier about the independent living skills, the particular one with Lisa is she will obtain her driver's license and she will live in an apartment assisted by friends and family. And Jeremy, his skills are he will play basketball in a recreation league at a local community center and will live with family or friends. So we're talking about where they're going to live, what their hopes are. That doesn't mean it's going to happen the day they graduate from high school, but it's in the future. How have we prepared them to be successful to achieve those goals? Again, for education, employment, and independent living. And then in that same section, after we've talked about those goals for life after high school, we talk about the areas of transition needs. What do we need to be focusing on for that student in order to help them achieve what they want for life after high school? Do we have to help them with developing self-determination skills? Do we have to give them time management skills, organizational skills? And then in this same section, we also talk about what is their courses of study that they're taking to be able to achieve their hopes and dreams for life after high school. So when you think about the courses of study, it's always going to be a multi-year description. So you might see, Lisa is actively engaged in pursuing her diploma and taking the necessary courses to complete all of the requirements to receive a high school diploma. And then beyond the regular curriculum, she needs to take courses in animal biology and computer processing. So the animal biology piece was because we know she wants to go into animal care, and the computer processing might be because we know that she doesn't have really good fine motor skills. So maybe she needs to do more things on a computer than handwriting them. Okay. And then we could also, to provide job exploration and skill development, her courses should include career technical education in veterinary science. So again, as I said, those three goals and these transition needs could fluctuate year to year because you're going to constantly be doing transition assessments, and this is an ongoing process to make sure that what the students' hopes and dreams are when they're 14 or 15 are still the same when they're 15 and 16, 16 and 17, and moving forward. Here's just some other areas thinking about transition needs. Darcy needs instructions in functional math. Charlie needs to develop self-advocacy skills. Brett needs to learn to use public transportation. Our hope when we see these transition needs are they are skills that tie to those three goals that the student said they want for life after high school, and they've been woven in through the present levels of performance. Okay. Again, as I mentioned, the measurable post-secondary goals are for life after high school. And then, in your child's IEP, we learned from the last two sessions, we have annual goals, which are skills that the student should develop within 1 year's time. We want to make sure that when we see those annual goals, that we can make a connection back to what the student says they want for life after high school. So the hope would be that as we're reviewing our child's annual goals, we can make a connection back to what they want for life after high school. And I think most goals we could do that. If we have a goal for self-advocacy or self-determination skills, that's helping our child to be independent for life after high school. Even a reading goal is going to help a student that furthers their education or learning because they have to continue to be able to learn to read and comprehend. So just thinking about making those connections. The next area that populates into the IEP is the coordinated set of transition activities. These are activities that the school district will be doing with the student on a yearly basis. They should change from year to year because it should be an activity that we're doing freshman year, it's completed, and then we come up with a new activity for sophomore year, junior year, senior year, super senior year, whatever it might be. All of these areas I'm going to touch upon, but a few things that I just want to show you on this slide, because this is how we as parents are viewing the IEP, is the service or activity will be listed here in the middle where those gray boxes are. And then over here, for compliance in New York State, we just have to say the school district. So it could say Syracuse City School District is responsible to carry out that activity. Best practice would be to list the title of the person that's doing that. So it might say Syracuse City School District Special Education Teacher, Syracuse City School District Speech and Language Pathologist. You don't want to list Christine O'Brien, Special Education Teacher, because if I leave, then you have to redo that section of the IEP. So if you say school district is responsible and then the title. Never in that area can it be the family members or the student being responsible for that. This is all about what are we doing to help the student build these transition activities to be successful in all of these areas for life after high school. So I want to show you some different examples. So let's say under instruction, right? So in this particular scenario, we're saying the student will practice giving change for items purchased with a 20, 10, 5, and $1 bill. So that is saying that in addition to everything else the student is doing, we know that this is an area that the student has to focus on. Instruction could also be, as I mentioned, building self-determination, self-advocacy skills, self-regulation. The related services section in here will only be there if the student is already receiving related services. So let me go back a minute and just show you right here. So instruction could be instruction in just about anything. and it shouldn't be a restatement of what the student is already doing. So they may be taking, math, algebra, ELA, global studies. It's not going to be there. It's going to be what skills do they need to develop to be successful to learn those, right? So time management, organizational skills, self-advocacy skills. The related services area here will only be completed if the student is receiving related services and if we feel as a committee that the speech therapist or the school counselor or the occupational therapist could create an activity above and beyond what they're already doing with the student to help for those goals for life after high school. If any of these areas are considered and we say that we don't think they're needed right now, that's fine too. It doesn't always have to be filled in, but you want to make sure that you at least say considered not needed or put an NA there. You just don't want to leave the area blank because then that's up for interpretation. Okay. So related services, again, if you had something like that, for example, here, counseling, self-advocacy, coping strategies to participate in the classroom, right? So that could be the school counselor could be working on that with the student. But our hope is that that activity is completed in that 1 year's time so that next year either there's a new related service or maybe we feel we don't need it any longer. Okay. Especially if your measurable post-secondary goals start changing for the student and the career line looks a little bit different, then we want to recreate some of these coordinated set of activities. So community experiences is experience that the student needs to participate in their community and how they access their community, right? So in this scenario, we said the student will utilize the internet to identify businesses aligned with their career interests within a 3 to 5 mile radius, right? This could be scheduling, job shadowing, interviewing, learning how to create resumes. But all of these services are in addition to what the student is already doing with their school counselors that all of the students in the school are doing, right? So our students are general education students and have afforded to them all of that great transition planning for all students. This is just in addition to because our students have a disability that impacts their education. So we're even giving them more services to prepare them to be successful for life after high school. And then if we look at development of employment and other post-school adult living objectives, maybe the student will learn to compare and contrast career options. If they haven't honed in and focused in yet on a career that they might want or, furthering their education, this is maybe could be, looking at doing different career types of inventories, learning more about careers, right? Completing applications, career fairs, things like that. Daily living skills on that chart says when appropriate. I will argue to you that it is appropriate for everybody, whether they are 14, 16, 32, or 52. We can all learn and hone in on some of our daily living skills. Think about organization, time management, self-care and dressing, money management. All of those areas are daily living skills. If we have a student that says they're hoping to live independently or live out of their parents' home or their guardian's home with friends and friends, then they're going to need to know how to manage money, how to pay their rent on time, how to pay their their electrical bill and their phone bill and all of that. So those are areas that we can help the student in understanding. I put in the chat box and I'm going to drop it in there again because I know some of you have been coming and going into, let me just do this. Nope, I didn't want to. Sorry, hang on a second. I'm in the chat. I just wanted to put my Google Drive in there again for you to be able to hit on that. In the Google Drive, again, is the PowerPoint presentation and some other documents, but the transition focus guide. And this is where I was mentioning that there's some great transition checklists. So you can look at prior to age 12, what are the things we should be thinking about all the way up to that age 17 to 21. And so that is a pages, I believe, like page 35 or so in the transition guide. What is our role as family members? We sort of talked about this already, but I want you to be able to be actively engaged with your child in helping them to understand what they might want for life after high school. Communicating high expectations, right? Setting the bar high for them and helping them to get there. Monitor their progress. Work with the school team to say, how are they progressing? Look at those coordinated set of activities and say, how did they progress with these activities? Do we think we have to repeat a little bit of one for next year, or can we move on to something else, right? And really helping our kids to build those self-determination skills so that they can learn how to advocate. As family members and teachers, we advocate for our students and our kids all the time. We want to be able to show them how we do that and start to teach them the skills to be able to do that in their adult life on their own. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is when we move into the world of adult life, right? So whether that's when the student has achieved their diploma, whether that's a local diploma or a Regents diploma, or the day before the 22nd birthday, the student is entitled to a free, appropriate public education. They're entitled to everything in that IEP. But the minute they exit high school, graduation or exit high school the day before their 22nd birthday, they now need to be eligible, right? So there are agencies that they will reach out to, but there's eligibility criteria. And that eligibility criteria can look very different for different agencies, right? So there's a lot of different agencies out there. Students may qualify, may not qualify, depending upon their eligibility. So we want to really be thinking about that. One of the key things that I will tell you, when all of our students with IEPs leave high school, they leave with something called the student exit summary. It almost looks like the front couple pages of their IEP, but it summarizes what the student's strengths, preference, interests, academic achievements have been. It's a great tool for that student to review and look at and say, okay, as I exit high school, these are the things I'm good at. These are the things that I still need some support in. And that is an actual document that they can share with agencies to find out what they can be eligible for in the adult world. Something else, I'm going to go back to this in a minute, but as I'm on this, so some of the people in my office are hosting, it's called Agency 101, and it's going to be, oh, that should say 2025, sorry. It's going to be April 4th, 2025 at Drumlins. This is where we will have a lot of those adult service agencies, kind of a resource fair, and each of them will get up and present for maybe 15 or 20 minutes on eligibility. So I would encourage family members, maybe some teachers if you can go to this. We typically do this particular presentation about 3 times a year. Sometimes we do it on an all-day Zoom, and sometimes it's in person. I have the save the date on there. As soon as I have the registration information, I will send that to Liberta and Rachel, and then they can forward that on to you guys. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that. And then I just kind of wanted to end here and kind of reflect back on everything that I talked about today is, again, post-secondary transition planning is preparing that child for life after high school, for living, learning, and earning. And the way we do that while we still have them in school is we think about who is the student today? What are their present levels of performance? Based on the transition assessments, what are their strengths, preference, interest, and needs currently, but also for what they want for life after high school? Who is the student tomorrow? Those are those 3 measurable post-secondary goals for education, employment, and independent living, right? So those are those 3 goals that we have in the IEP that we reflect on, but that we then help the student get there by utilizing the coordinated set of activities, our transition needs and courses of study, and making sure that our annual goals can tie into their transition plan for life after high school. Okay. Questions?
Thank you so much, Christine. That was a lot of
You're
good
welcome.
information. I hope everyone had a chance to download the transition planning guide. I think you're going to still send it to us, and we'll send it out also as well. But if you guys have any questions at this time, please either pop them in the chat or raise your hand, and we can unmute you and you can ask your question to Christine. Is there a way I can get the recording of the previous session? Yes, this is recorded. We will have this posted on the family engagement page on the Syracuse City School District website. So you can always go back there and if you go to family engagement, all of our video chats from this year are posted and you can watch them at any time. All right. Any other questions? What happens if we miss our students' IEP meeting? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm going to stop sharing my page. That'll probably be a little bit easier for me to navigate. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so if you miss your child's CSE meeting, you want to contact the school district right away. A lot of times, because our CSE meetings are time sensitive, because an annual review has to happen at least once a year. So if you didn't reach out to the school district to let them know that you weren't available to come, and you weren't able to be there, then you want to reach out to your special education teacher or your family engagement liaisons and say, you know, what was decided at that IEP meeting. And if you disagree with some of those decisions or your student does, you can ask for another meeting to happen. But the focus would be to really think about trying to attend those meetings as best that you can. You receive a meeting notice that tells you when the meeting is and who all of the parties are that are going to be there. If, as a parent or a student, you are unable to make that meeting at that location, on Zoom, in person, at the time, on that day, it is your right to ask for that meeting to be changed to a time and a place that is convenient for you. So, but if for some reason something happened, I know life happens a lot and you had it on your calendar and you totally forgot about it or something came up, you want to reach out to the school district immediately to find out what the decisions were that were made at that IEP meeting and make sure that you're comfortable and your student is comfortable with those decisions.
Great, thank you. Yes, I really encourage when you get your CSE meeting request or save the date that if you cannot make it, please call your school right away and they will work with you to schedule the meeting at a time that's convenient for you and a place that's convenient for you. I think most of our CSE meetings right now are happening virtually, but yeah, if at the time that they set for you didn't work, then definitely let them know and they'll try to reschedule to make it that's good so you can be there. Because it's really important that families are at these meetings. I wanted to ask. She said that after COVID, they've all been on the phone, but can they be in person again? That's a good question. I don't know if that's a district thing.
Yeah, that would be
a federal
No,
thing. I'm not really sure.
That would be a district decision. That's something at the district level. So yeah, so you would reach out on, I don't know if any of the CSE liaisons are on the call tonight. They might know, but yeah. So if you got, Liberta, if you could like look into that. I know a lot of school districts kept meetings on Zoom because there was more participation because people didn't have to leave their job and drive 20 minutes to and from an area. So I know a lot of participation increased from family members during Zoom. But I will tell you this as a mom of a child who had a disability. I liked the in-person. I like to see people's body language, facial expressions as they're talking about my child. I like to see all of that. So I would definitely, maybe you can find out their school, just their actual building, Liberta, and see.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm all about being in the room with the people myself.
Ms. Gonzalez,
but it's not in New York.
Oh, sorry.
No, I should say it's not a New York State regulation. It's district it would be a district policy if they're on Zoom or in person, or if you have a choice.
I just put my contact information in the chat, Ms. Gonzalez. So if you want to give me a call tomorrow, I can look into that for you.
Great.
Do we have any other questions, comments? All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you.
Our next meeting
I think it's in
April.
Do we have April or May? I couldn't remember if we did April or not.
I don't know. It's one of those things.
It's right. I know we already have it scheduled. It's there somewhere. Right. All right. Thanks so much. Have a great evening, everybody.
They said if the school is not doing IEP meetings, what can she do?
If the school is not having IEP meetings?
Yeah, it just says if the school is not doing the IEP meeting, what can I do?
Okay. So by New York State, regulations, your school district has to have an IEP meeting at least once a year for your child's IEP. So maybe you didn't see the meeting notice, but there has to be one. So what I would do is I would look at your most recent IEP, and on the IEP on the front page, there it says the anticipated date of the next annual review because it has to happen within 365 days. So I always like to tell parents, so look at that date and it might say April 2025. So then you know that there's going to be a meeting sometime before April 2025. I would reach out to um your child's, lead special education or case management teacher and say when will that meeting be? But there has to be a meeting. If for some reason there is not a meeting, then that's what you want to bring to the family engagement office and have them reach out to the CSA liaisons to find out why there wasn't.
And then we had another
Okay, and then I see
comment
some.
along the same line saying if the student isn't getting their services on an IEP, what do we do?
Yes. So if you feel like there are services on your child's IEP that they are not getting and they're not being implemented, that is a call immediately to the special education, your lead teacher. I'm trying to think of what the name of the teacher is. A lot of times it's usually your child's special education teacher as their like teacher of record who you would go to. Reach out to them first, ask why the services, aren't being implemented. Sometimes, very honestly, an accommodation might not be implemented because the student is refusing to go to a quiet location to take a test, to have a human reader help them with the test. But if that's not the case, you would go directly to your teacher of record to have those conversations so that they are aware. Because a lot of times, especially in the high schools, the teacher of record maybe sees your child for 1 or 2 periods, but not the whole day. So you want to start those conversations as soon as you start to hear that that's not being implemented. If it's more severe than just a service here or there, you call a CSE meeting. You, in writing, request a CSE meeting to sit down with the entire team and discuss why it's not even being implemented and how it can be implemented moving forward. But you, as a family member and guardian, can ask for a committee on special education meeting at any time if you feel like things are not going well and not being implemented in the IEP.
And at any time, if you need support, please reach out to the Office of Family Engagement. We have people assigned in every building, so they could support you and at least get you to the right people to help you get those things figured out.
Exactly. Exactly. Great.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time this evening. Christine, thank you so much. We will see you guys again later in the spring.
You're welcome.
Hopefully, we won't have snow on the ground anymore, and we can enjoy some sunshine. Everyone stay warm, enjoy your evening, and have a great day.
Thanks, Roberta. Bye-bye.